Welcome everybody to the podcast Legend Killers. So check it out, right? We're going to talk about instead of WWE, we're going to talk about AEW a little bit. And on top of that, I also want to talk about the Jericho podcast with Steve Austin coming soon. I cannot wait for either of those. One thing I'm constantly reminded of is mental health, right? We're reminded of it every single day. You know, there are people in your life, my life, everybody's life that goes through insecurities, anxieties, a lot of hardships in life, a lot of adversity in life. And I want to take the time out to say, and I'm going to say this every single week, you know, you always have someone out there that loves you. You always have someone out there that cares about you. So no matter what, always reach out to somebody. Always know that there is a way to help yourself feel better and overcome whatever you're anxious about, whatever it is you're doing. And hell, my DMs are always open. Feel free. I care about you. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Just to keep it short and sweet for all you listeners out there. And let's go ahead and get on with the show. So, Steve Austin and Jericho broke the internet today. Or was it yesterday? I don't know. I'm losing track of time. But I will say they broke the internet because guess what? On WWE programming, we now see the return of Jericho. Sort of. He is going to be on the podcast, and I think, personally, this is going to be a damn good show. I can't wait to see it. And honestly, this episode was just going to be a review on the recent AEW episode, but I gotta talk about this shit, right? They broke the internet, and I can't believe how amazed everyone is, because if anything, it actually makes sense that Jericho would be on a podcast with Steve Austin, even though he's in AEW. Now listen, I know I sound crazy, but hear me out. The first reason why is because Jericho has always had a good relationship with WWE and Vince McMahon. Regardless of the falling out that he may or may not have had, I always knew they were going to come back to good terms. Secondly, it's just not realistic that Jericho would not be on good terms with Vince McMahon. And third, it's good ratings. I mean, it's money. Let's be honest here. Who would not be so amazed at the surprise of this, that they would actually see this? And who is not curious about the questions that Austin would ask Jericho and the subjects that Austin would talk to Jericho about on WWE programming? It's such a crazy crossover that I personally am intrigued and interested to watch. You know, and I know I'm not the only one. So that being said, I want to go into shortly the 5 questions, in my opinion, that Steve Austin should ask Chris Jericho. Number 1 is his relationship with Vince McMahon. I think that it is more than appropriate that Jericho asks Mr. McMahon, that's my Two Stooges impression. I think it is important that Jericho, clarifies what their relationship is like, considering the fact that both companies agreed to this crossover. So I'm honestly going to be really intrigued to hear what he has to say, whether it's good things, bad things. I really want to know this. Number 2, does he or anyone on the AEW roster watch the current WWE product? I think that it would make for an interesting conversation. I think if Jericho were to answer honestly, like who watches the WWE product currently, and not even in a competitive way or anything like that. I just mean as a fan, as a wrestling fan, because I'm sure everybody on the AEW is a fan of wrestling in general. So I wonder, you know, I'm sure it's not full of bitter people towards AEW. Sure, there might be some people who are bitter, but hell, you could still be a fan regardless, right? So I wonder, number 3, how Jericho sees the Wednesday Night Wars, right? We all know Jericho going on Twitter calling himself the demo god and stuff, and always having something to say about the ratings. Now, my curiosity is, is Jericho just playing that up, or if he actually, takes this seriously, if he honestly really has some sort of beef with NXT? Because I know, it's competition. And of course, he likes to trash talk. Jericho's always been a heel at heart. Even in 2009, if you read his book, you would know that he was trying to play up a heel so well that he wouldn't even sign a kid's shirt, and he didn't even want merch for himself. So that, I think, was a really cool thing. Now, considering with all that knowledge, I know Jericho's also, playing up his heelish aspects a little bit. Although I will say Jericho's also an idiot. He is. I mean, to have the concert, right? No mask on, idiotic. But that's beside the point. Number 4. Does he miss being on WWE programming? I think this will also be an interesting question, something I would ask, because, I wonder these things. Does he ever miss being on WWE? What his feelings towards WWE is, and, maybe there are some who he'd like to wrestle. Imagine Apollo Crews, the new Apollo Crews up against Chris Jericho. I think that would be interesting. That's just my take, my opinion. Number 5 and final question that I think I would like to hear is who he would like to see on the AEW roster. So yeah, I think personally, to know if Jericho could pick one person on the AEW roster, who would it be and why? I would absolutely want to hear about this. I think, Steve Austin always asks the good, intriguing questions, and I know he won't be a slouch even in this sort of aspect. So I really think that at least one of these questions might come up. And honestly, my opinion towards this is I can't see most of this podcast being about the past, whereas I think it'd be about the present and the future and stuff, because that, I think, is what's on everybody's mind right now. What is Jericho's state of mind, and what his feelings are towards AEW and WWE, what's his attitude towards everything. And I just, again, I think it's an interesting podcast that I can't wait to see myself. Now, finally, all that being said, let's get into AEW. All right. Now, one thing you guys don't know is I am on location right now, which is why you don't see my beautiful face, and it's a shame because I got a haircut, I got a nice shave. Shit, if you guys could only see how gorgeous I look right now, man. Whereas all the other episodes you've been seeing with my hairy ass Wolverine looking self. But anyway, because I am on location, I get to talk about AEW a little bit, because I am on location with cable, right? I actually have cable now. So let's talk about AEW, considering the fact that my man Christian Cage has his first debut, and I love me some Christian Cage. So let's get into the match itself. Christian faces off Frankie Kazarian. I hope I'm not butchering that. The first thought when I was watching this match is Christian did not miss a step. Absolutely amazing. And I shared the same thought when the Royal Rumble came up. He did not miss a step, but now I get to see it even more because he has the spotlight on him. And Christian, everything he's done, it was really good. He had a good flurry of offense, but he also took a lot of offense. which in my opinion is perfect storytelling because Christian has gone 7 years without wrestling. So of course he's going to be out of it. Of course the story should be Christian should be a little, I guess, quote unquote, rusty, and he should be taking a lot of offense because it's what makes sense. Kazarian, I don't know too much about this Kazarian guy. I got to check out more of his stuff, but I don't know if he's been taking time off of wrestling, and much less 7 years apart. So maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think it makes absolute sense that Christian takes a lot of offense. He gets beaten up a lot, right? But this match also had an underdog feel towards it because Christian eventually got the momentum back. And it was a slightly back and forth match, not really, but it was still really cool. One thing I was shocked to see is like him pulling his old moveset without, botching too much. It was just so surprising to see how good he was. Not even Jericho, who I think spent a little bit less time away from the ring, was able to pull off the rust from his recent return to WWE. Batista took 4 years away, and there was rust from Batista. Ring rust. The Rock took the same amount of time away from the ring, and he was rusty as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, he still looked really good, but he was also rusty. Christian, he just did not miss a beat. And again, it was good to see him pulling off his old moveset without any flaws. The diving European uppercut, the tornado DDT, all of that. So that was really cool. One really nasty spot that I was so shocked that Christian didn't really protect himself. There was a diving splash, I guess, because it wasn't really a frog splash. It was just Christian just kind of jumped, and Christian full on landed on the mat. From what I saw, he didn't even put his hands in front. He just jumped and landed full body, which was so shocking to me. I wonder if Christian was winded after that, because it's something that, you can't just recover from automatically unless Christian has like mutant John Cena superpowers. So that was, that was pretty cool. It was actually pretty funny. Yeah, so he went for that diving splash. Kazarian moves out the way, and again, he just completely took that fall. Next, we saw the flux capacitor from Kazarian to Christian. You got me on the false finish there. I honestly thought that was going to be it. Next, Kazarian went for the springboard leg drop. So, for those that don't know, Christian was in the middle rope, kind of in the same position where Randy Orton does his draping DDT. And Frankie Kazarian goes on the middle rope. He does a springboard, and then I guess does a leg drop on the back of Christian's head. He completely missed that. Christian rolled out the way, hits a frog splash for the near fall, and then Frankie goes for the crossface chicken wing. Christian rolls through here, and then this was where the finish gets led. Christian rolls through, and Kaz, he tried to charge at Christian and then runs into the turnbuckle. Christian hits the kill switch, and Christian Cage wins. Now, my final thoughts on this match. I thought it was, a beautiful finish sequence. Honestly, I really like that sequence. I think it was really cool. It reminded me a little bit, and I gave the same comparison to Bayley versus Nia Jax at NXT TakeOver London. It felt like a Batman versus Bane type of match where Batman, he out resources the bad guy here, and he finishes them off that way. It was really cool, and I'm glad Christian got the win here. It's really cool to see him in great shape. There was great storytelling to this match, like I said. Logical that Christian will take a lot of offense considering he's been gone 7 years. Christian, I will say he looked gassed, but I give it a pass because, again, he's been gone 7 freaking years. He's allowed to be gassed for all I care. Overall, great performance from both guys. I'm now a Kaz fan from this match. I regret not watching TNA in my younger years. For whatever reason, I didn't. But it's great to see Christian Cage deliver as always. So the next thing I want to talk about, there was this promo where it was Sting and I believe Darby Allin. Forgive me, I'm kind of new to AEW, so I'm still getting to know all the characters. They did a promo on Matt Hardy, and the basis of this promo was simply talking about Matt Hardy's career and what he's doing now. I believe Darby Allin said Matt's body is breaking down and now he's looking for money. Sting stayed quiet throughout this whole thing. So also another thing I noticed. Money was thrown over a balcony, which I'll assume is a reference to Matt Hardy's current gimmick. And maybe telling the story that Darby Allin doesn't do this for the money. He's not in it for the money, but Matt is. That's also something I interpreted off of seeing that. Now, I do apologize again. I'm barely getting into the show, so it's going to take me a little while to catch up. Next, there was this backstage promo from Jade Cargill. Very impassioned promo. I thought there was some really good delivery from her. I really liked that the highlights were playing as she was talking. Really cool. Good way to get me invested as a fan. Based on the highlight reel, I will say it appears as though she is being booked or being groomed to be a top babyface for the women's AEW roster. Of course, the one thing that was pretty cool, she ends the promo with "I am that bitch." Really good promo. Liked it. I look forward to seeing what happens with her next week. Next, there's the match with Cody Rhodes versus QT Marshall with A Double, not Austin Aries, Arn Anderson, that A Double as the special guest enforcer. Match starts off with a test of strength, eventually leading into a technical bout. Cody Rhodes gets most of the offense in the beginning, and for every single move that QT Marshall would try, Cody Rhodes had an answer for everything, which simply put is the story of this match. And as said in the commentary, QT Marshall cannot out-wrestle Cody Rhodes, which is very apparent. From the get-go, Cody Rhodes has had the upper hand here. There was a really cool crisscross spot that I really liked where both men are running the ropes here on opposite ends. I've always found that to be really funny. Then Cody hits a flurry of these beautiful arm drags, right? Second to none, right? And I think, honestly, aside from Ricky Steamboat, because of course he's the one who's always praised, I've always loved the arm drags that Becky Lynch would have. But Cody Rhodes, he hits them just as well. Really liked him. Later on, QT hits a really good drop kick, and I noticed he got a lot of height on it for a man his size. I would expect that sort of drop kick from Montez Ford, because have you seen this guy's frog splashes, right? The guy, if he could possibly go any freaking higher, he'd probably disappear off the TV screen and hit the ceiling of the building. It's just, he's that damn athletic. He gives Shelton Benjamin a run for his money. But anyway, we're not talking about Montez Ford. Let's talk about QT Marshall. He hits a really good drop kick. Really liked it. And, he finally gets some offense, but then it cuts to commercial. And right when it's back from commercial, Cody again has some momentum on this. And honestly, I will say for the finish of this, I really thought that Cody was kind of the heel in this match. He was acting kind of like a dick, if I'm being honest here. And I'll say it because, after the match, he goes for the figure four and then he releases it. And then he goes for the crossroads and again releases it, kind of seemingly to mock QT Marshall, saying that, I can finish it if I want, but he's not going to, So then later on, instead of QT trying to out-wrestle Cody, he tries to go for a clever way of taking on Cody, trying to use his own anger against him. QT slaps Cody, and Cody gets overzealous, trying to hit QT twice, but misses. And then QT, again, this is one of these things where Cody, again, looks very, very much either smarter than QT or just more dominant in this match. QT attempts a crossbody, and then Cody ducks. Of course, QT didn't hit a Christian type of fall where he just took the whole mat, but he falls. It looks nasty. Again, Cody comes off as a heel here, as to even invite QT back into the ring because he fell out the ring. And finally, QT had enough. He hits Arn Anderson, and then he runs away from the ring. And then everyone gets into the ring, JR screaming, "What the hell are you thinking?" Now, QT, of course, looking frustrated, leaving the ring, like I said. Honestly, I'll say this much. For as much as Cody out wrestling and kind of mocking QT, I'd be pissed off too, right? This guy's not taking me seriously. It would piss me off too, just as much as anyone. So the match ends on, I guess, a no contest. And eventually there were guys attacking Billy Gunn, Cody Rhodes, and Dustin Rhodes, which I'm going to assume is the faction. I believe their faction, even if I'm not mistaken, is the Nightmare Family. So they were attacked by these guys. I don't know their names, and they're pretty much taking it to Cody. Lee Johnson took a nasty power bomb from the ring onto the ramp, and he really sold that like death. And honestly, I just can't wait to see what happens next week. I think the whole thing's really cool. There was a chair shot to the head on the steel steps, which was teased, kind of like a concerto, except the bottom is the steel steps, obviously. Now, Red Velvet saves Cody Rhodes from the chair shot, and I will say that was a good conclusion. I wish the match lasted a little bit longer. Again, my first thought was Cody was the heel here, but I was wrong. Regardless, this heel turn worked perfectly, and I really like the way they did this beatdown. I look forward to seeing how this faction does and how it goes faction against faction. I'm actually really interested and intrigued. So next there was a Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page promo. Now, I'll be honest, I didn't write too much on their notes because there wasn't really too much that they said that really stood out to me. But I'm interested to see what happens with them next week because I've seen Scorpio Sky perform live and in person. Shout out to Rival Pro Wrestling. I want to see how they go with this. I really do want to see where they go with this. Next, there was a Jon Moxley promo where everything pisses him off. Very impassioned, talking a little bit of Cesar Benoni and talking about the Good Brothers attacking Eddie Kingston 2 weeks ago. And it honestly, coming off of this promo, I thought it was really good, better than anything I've seen in his WWE run. And that's all I could say. It was a really good promo. Really happy for Jon Moxley that he gets to just kind of get the leash off of him and just say whatever the hell comes to mind. So the match the segment cuts into Jon Moxley versus Cesar Benoni. It's pretty much apparent that the story is Jon is distracted by the attack on the Good Brothers on Eddie Kingston 2 weeks ago, and he does not let that interfere too much into the match. He takes it to Cesar Benoni. They get into a stare off, and in my notes here it says Bono, so we're gonna start calling him that. He shoves Bono's face. Bono pushes him back, and then eventually the offense goes to Bono. He has the upper hand, and he's pretty much ragdolling Jon Moxley for a little bit. Then Jon gets his momentum back, and he hits a nice leg breaker, which was a really nasty move. And pretty much the whole rest of this match, Jon targets the right leg. Now, one thing that I will say that I hope never happens again is Jon Moxley doing those Daniel Bryan style kicks. Please never do those again. Those looked atrocious. Those kicks look so bad that The Miz actually looks good doing them. That was how atrocious those kicks were. Absolutely. Please never do them again. And if he does them again, well, I'm just going to tune out. I really don't want to feel offended here. I am more offended than Logan Paul being on WWE. That's how much this bothers me. That was some awful, awful kicks. But it's okay. It's okay. All jokes aside, still, please, John, don't ever do those again. Mr. Moxley, however you would like to be addressed. Benoni again gets some offense, and it's been a merry-go-round of offense where both men have been back and forth. John finally angering Bono and using that against him, and then there was a spot where John, I believe, was either going to pin Benoni or had him in some sort of submission. Could be wrong. And there was a distraction by one of the, I'm assuming Bono's friends. And then the other guy comes out. I apologize, I don't know their names. He comes out and he tries to attack Jon Moxley. John, counters it, hits him with a Death Rider. And then finally he hits Bono does end up capitalizing, only for him to attempt a pump handle slam, and then he counters that into a sleeper hold. Or John counters that into a sleeper hold. And then Bono finally taps. See, I thought this was a good match, good story being told here. The sequences were logical. One thing I liked was, John here was a lot more logical. In kayfabe here, I'm talking in the match sense. He was a lot more logical than Dean Ambrose was. Where Dean Ambrose was more portrayed to be a wacky, wild card, unpredictable wrestler, which isn't bad, but he would make mistakes an idiot would make. Now John, there's a method to his madness. That was more down his alley, manipulating his opponent and using that to his control. And it's a complete 180 from his WWE matches, right? He wasn't doing things just to do it. Then finally, there was a segment backstage with the Pinnacle. They were celebrating at first, and then I believe MJF tries to open the door. Jericho's right there, pissed and angry, looking like a guy from a freaking bar, getting ready to fight. So then MJF closes the door, says, "We gotta go." And then he opens another door, and there is Jake Hager, right? And he punches the shit out of MJF. Finally, there was a whole beat down, and it was really cool. Everybody on the inner circle did some really cool spot to pretty much beat down the Pinnacle. Sammy Guevara hits a burning hammer into a knee strike, which was impressive. I'll be honest, I don't know if that's his finisher or whatnot. Jake Hager hits a Uranagi into the massage table, right? Cash Wheeler was pushed into the ice bath, and then Dax Harwood was bloodied from a freaking crowbar. Jericho just beats the living shit out of MJF, shoves his head into a toilet. While his head was in the toilet, Jericho should have just gave him a swirly. Then he throws him into the vending machine, and he like a badass, he yells, "MJF deserved every bit of this." No. Sorry, that wasn't. That was actually commentary. from JR. My bad. This was complete and brutal destruction of the Pinnacle, and I thought this whole thing was glorious. MJF and Jericho. I look forward to seeing the next stage of this feud. Next is a 6-man tag, Lucha Brothers and Laredo Kid versus Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers. And right off the gate, the Lucha Bros and Laredo Kid are attacking the Good Brothers and Kenny Omega. It starts off with 3 Tope Con Helos onto them. Triple dives, which is really cool. Starting off the match, Kenny Omega gets some offense. Doc Gallows, he shines here the most, seeing his offense get in, and I think he had the most ring time. And it was really cool to see his moveset. Haven't seen it in a while, so maybe that's why, in my opinion, he shined a little bit more. And then a really cool spot here that I really liked was Kenny carries Doc on his back, and he starts walking towards his opponent. And then Carl Anderson, right? It seemed like he was playing leapfrog here. He comes running behind, and then he jumps up and pushes the back of Doc, and all three fall forward for a triple body splash, right? And then finally, so going back into it was a little bit back and forth this match, right? And there was some good tag team moves from the Lucha Bros. And I don't even know how to describe some of these moves. There was just so much flurry. There were so many moving parts in this match. It was really fast paced. Really liked it. Final thoughts on this was it was a pay-per-view style match, essentially. I definitely enjoyed it. Like I said, so many moving parts. And I really liked it. Kenny Omega wins this match off of the One-Winged Angel. Then after that, John Moxley and the Young Bucks come out to confront and support John Moxley in all this. And I'll be honest, I kind of thought there was going to be a turn where they all attack John. Especially given the fact that the Young Bucks and Kenny are friends. Now, I could have been entirely wrong. I haven't been watching this. So, Next, there's Nyla Rose and the Bunny. I really had to read that right. The Bunny against Taynara Conchi and Hikaru Shida. Right. So Nyla and, again, the Bunny start off with the upper hand here. There was a cool spot where Matt distracted Hikaru for Nyla to attack. Kind of predictable, but really cool. The match was back and forth. There was a gory palm into a knee strike, which was cool. And then Nyla breaks up the pin, and Hikaru goes off of a poetry in motion outside the ring and hits Nyla. Again, really cool. Final thoughts on this match, or the finish of this match, sorry. Excuse me. There was a distracted spot where the ref was distracted, and I believe the Bunny hit whoever it was with the kendo stick into a final cut. Overall, I will say this match, I wasn't impressed too much by it. It was just a bit predictable for my taste. A little too predictable. The sequence of the match, that was cool. The spot where there was the gory bomb and then the knee strike onto Nyla, or I believe Hikaru Shida, I could be wrong, and then the poetry in motion hit. Other than that, I don't really have too much to say about this match that I really was too impressed with. Otherwise, it was a mediocre match. The main event here was the Arcade Anarchy match, which is Miro and Kip Sabian up against Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Miro comes out. He looks He looks noticeably lean, right? I think that's really cool to see that. He actually looks really good. The match starts off with a brawl. Miro and Kip have the beginning offense here. There was some really cool spots they utilized the arcade gimmick of this match really well. Miro and Kip, with Cassidy, Orange Cassidy hitting Kip with the whack-a-moles. Miro, I believe there was a spot where there was a double suplex into a guardrail. And then Miro just destroyed Orange Cassidy at one point in this match. Honestly, it was really cool. There was a trash can lid attacking Miro's head, right? 6 trash can lid shots to Miro's head. Freaking cool, freaking brutal. Then there was the guardrail rammed into Miro. And then he gets buried in the tables and trash can lids and whack-a-mole for a pin. And then there was a Lego spot where, listen, if you guys have ever stepped on a Lego, that shit is one of the most painful things I would never wish on my worst enemy. If you ever had that happen to you, then you really, really, really need to see a doctor, because it's terrible. I think I was probably praying that not a single Lego was stood upright, because then that's even worse. It really is. Really is even worse. A cover was attempted. Penelope Ford comes out and interrupts it. There was a low blow from Penelope onto Orange Cassidy. Then the Michinoku driver was hit by Chris Statland to counter Penelope Ford. And this was onto an air hockey table. The interference was cool from the guy. Then there was another interference from a guy attacking Miro. Miro then beats him down and walks to the card to harass this lady. And then there was a sequence of weapons being utilized well in this match type. Chuck pins Kip off of a power slam dive into the table. Overall, I will say it was a good match. Miro looks strong here. I know a lot of people, from what I hear, are complaining about Miro and how he's been looking in AEW, but off of this match, I will say he looked strong here. He looked like a monster, and I really think he looked good. Even if he lost in defeat, I think he looked good. So, overall thoughts of the show. It was a really good show. I think it was a little heavy on the backstage segments, especially in the first hour and a half, I should say. An hour and a half. But I'll still say it was really good nonetheless. I enjoyed most of the matches and definitely look forward to the next episode. If I get the chance, If I'm ever on location again, I should say. So, I have no problem with it. Maybe a little less segments, because, in my notes here, I stopped writing down the segments because it was so much. But again, good show. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you guys next week.